Hi, welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And if there ever was a big episode on this show, it's this episode. We're going to review Avengers Infinity War. I would highly recommend not listening to this episode if you have not seen the film.
No.
But let's be real, you've seen the film because the movie made like all the fucking money last weekend.
It broke records for sure.
Yeah, broke the records. It made more in a weekend domestically than what Justice League made. Than what Justice League made in its entire theatrical run domestically.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. We're going to talk about it. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we broke our rule of like not talking about the movie before we do the review a few times.
Yes.
Unintentionally.
Because you can't help yourself. Yeah. You can't help yourself.
Especially this one, because there's so many spoilers. You have to be careful who you're saying things around.
Yes.
If you haven't seen the film, just see the film first.
See the film first. So before we get into the review, though, we're going to be going over the comic book movie news from the past week, which includes the Venom official trailer and the final Cloak and Dagger trailer. But we should get through that pretty quickly because I want to get to the review real quick. I have a feeling this is going to be a long episode because there's going to be a lot to talk about. But as always, you can look at the episode description and go ahead and skip ahead to the review if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, the chapter times will be in the episode description.
Yes. So real quick, before we announce the no prize winner for this week, we have a few bits of news regarding our Patreon that we would like to share. First off, we're adding a $5 tier in addition to the $2 tier that we currently have that gives you access to the bonus episodes we release every Thursday. What we'll be doing is archiving that bonus content 1 month after its release, and the $5 tier gives you access to that back archive.
Right.
The $2 tier still gives you access to all the cool bonus episodes we put out, and we won't be archiving anything until June, so there's still plenty of time to join and listen to our bonus duels, our top 10 lists, our movie pitches, and our blooper reels. Speaking of blooper reels, stay tuned until the end of this episode, much like how you would stay after the credits of a Marvel movie, for a sneak peek at this Thursday's bloopers bonus episode.
I'm still surprised when I see people leave before the credits of a Marvel film, even with Infinity War. I was like, what are you doing? But this month has 5 Thursdays. When we initially planned our schedule for our Patreon bonus content episodes, we planned 4. One for every Thursday of the month. Of course, this one, we have a Thursday, though we didn't know what we were going to do for that. So we thought we would set up a phone line.
Yeah, a Google Voice number that you guys can call in and talk to us directly.
Leave us a voicemail.
Leave us a voicemail, rather.
Yeah.
I won't be answering the phone.
You could ask us a question or
leave a comment,
some feedback, tell us how your day was.
Yeah, but we'll be playing it on our bonus episode. We'll be taking that message, playing it on our episode, and addressing it however we need to, I guess. But it'll be a lot of fun, and it's a great way for you guys to communicate with us about, all the great superhero stuff out there, Marvel and DC stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's duels that you want to see or if it's thoughts on your favorite Marvel and DC movies. Go ahead and call in at 303-736-9963.
Yeah, it's a Denver local number, but most phone plans, I think, have long distance.
Okay.
Also, one more note about our Patreon is that if you've been to our Patreon page, you'll see that we have goals listed there. Like, this podcast is free. Joseph and I, we both have day jobs. We don't do it for the money. We don't do it for all the sweet, sweet greenbacks. But what we are trying to do is raise enough money to send no prize winners a physical copy, a printed copy of the no prize prize.
Yeah, that we award out. Yeah, we think that would be really cool to do. And if we can get to 25 patrons, we can go ahead and do that.
Right now we're at 11.
So go ahead and visit us at patreon.com/dynamicduel and look around, see if you like what you see. And if so, join up.
Yeah. But speaking of no prize, it's no prize time.
All right, a no prize is an award that Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans that pointed out errors in their comics. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media, again, that we would like to send out physically.
Right now it's just a JPEG.
Yeah, right now it's just a JPEG we post on social media, but we do personally draw it up for those that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week's question was, who's your dream director that hasn't directed a Marvel or DC film yet, but should? And this week's winner is a Mr. George Cranitis of Facebook, who said, I would love to see Wes Anderson direct a stop-motion capture adaptation of Squirrel Girl, a la Mr. Fantastic Fox or the Fantastic Mr. Fox or Isle of Dogs.
Yeah. I did not even think of Wes Anderson. Like, he was sort of like the last person on my list. But the way he, described this as stop motion with Squirrel Girl, totally sold.
It's such an outside the box answer. Like, we got a few Quentin Tarantino's and Martin Scorsese's and things like that.
Those were my answers.
Yeah, I actually don't know what my answer was. But I like Wes Anderson as a director, and the concept of him directing a stop motion Squirrel Girl, I think, is really appealing. Because honestly, I don't know if I would ever want to see like a live action Squirrel Girl in the vein of like these Avengers movies. I know that they are putting out a show soon starring, I think her name was Milana Vaintrub, I think, as Squirrel Girl.
We actually haven't heard too much about that in a long time.
No, not in a while. I'm not sure if it's still happening. It was originally going to be on the Freeform network, much like Cloak and Dagger, but I think they decided to move it somewhere else, maybe more along like
more of a
network television kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, if that show ends up not happening, stop motion animation Squirrel Girl all the way, I think it would be hilarious. It would totally suit the character. And great answer.
Can there be an animated film in the MCU?
Great question. Probably not.
Yeah.
I know they have the
closest
Spider-Man
thing is going to be the Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, later this year. But that's not in the MCU. It's going to be in like an alternate, in the Ultimate Universe, I guess.
Yeah.
But we'll be asking another question of the week later on this episode, so stay tuned for that. And if you answer the best, I don't know what that means. If you give the best answer, we'll go ahead
the answer we like the most, like this one.
Yeah, we'll award you the No Prize. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and
on to the news.
All right, so after the disastrous teaser trailer for Venom, we get an official trailer for the Venom movie, and this one actually says the word Venom in the title card as opposed to just the letter V.
Letter V. That's right. I was afraid it was just going to say E, and then there are going to be like 5 trailers that spell out the word Venom.
Yeah, this one is much better. Yeah, I have to say it's an improvement
for sure.
So it basically starts off with us seeing the crashed alien spaceship and the two.
Is it an alien spaceship or is it like a space shuttle?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
It doesn't look too alien to me.
It looks vaguely human.
Yeah.
That's a good question. But we see the two symbiotes, and I'm going to pronounce them symbiotes because that's how they're properly pronounced.
I say symbiote. Like symbiote.
Get out of here.
All right.
Get out of here then.
Isn't that how they pronounce it in the trailer?
We pronounce it symbiotes around here.
All right.
It just sounds better to me, I think. Yeah, but we see that there's two symbiotes that have been acquired by the Life Foundation. And it looks like they're experimenting on human beings. And Eddie Brock has a problem with it because he's a journalist. I don't know if he's a journalist for the Bugle in this.
Yeah, I'm not sure who he represents. I imagine whoever he represents isn't going to be too happy with his interview tactics. Or technique.
It's a pretty bad journalism tactic to go ahead and like ambush basically your interviewee.
It's like shock journalism. It's like, oh, you kill people. What's your response?
Yeah, not a great tactic. And he gets thrown out, and he acquires the Venom symbiote based off of a tip from Jenny Slate's character. I don't know who she is, but she basically is the mole for the Life Foundation and tells him what's going on.
Yeah.
In the comics, the Life Foundation was the organization that was able to get a sample of the Venom symbiote and create offspring from it in the form of, I can't remember all their names, but
it was like Anti-Venom.
Phage. No, it was like Phage, Lash, Riot, Scream, and I can't remember the last one. I think that's going to be the plot of this movie, where he's going to have to go up against different Venom symbiotes. Although I'm hoping it's just one symbiote and that it's Carnage. Although Carnage is actually another offspring of the main Venom symbiote.
Right.
In this case, it could just be the other one that's in that container at the beginning of this trailer.
Yeah. I
think that'd be pretty cool. He gets infected with the symbiote. He goes home, and we see it in action for the first time. What did you think of that scene?
It was interesting. Tom Hardy always gives like a good performance. I'm still not sold on his voice though, I think.
It's a little weird here. Usually he's a spot-on voice actor.
It's just hard into these brief snippets to really accept the fact that that's his voice and that's how he's acting. He comes across as not the most intelligent person.
Well, yeah, between his interview tactics and just kind of the way he speaks.
Like, well, why would we do that? Yeah, Yeah,
a little bit. But I don't know. Eddie Brock is a somewhat intelligent character in the comics and everything like that. He's not like a bad journalist. He just made a mistake. Spider-Man revealed it, and he got fired and holds a vendetta against Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Of course, this particular movie won't have anything to do with Spider-Man other than a possible rumored cameo by Tom Holland.
I doubt it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. All we know is that the symbiote is not going to start off with Spider-Man, and it's not going to find its origins in, another planet during the Secret War.
To sell a toy.
Yeah, to sell a toy. Instead, it's going to start off with Eddie Brock, which I don't think I have a huge problem with, actually.
I would have a problem with it if he had like a spider on his chest and he like shot webbing. But he doesn't seem to be doing that. Like,
No.
the tendrils that come out of him during the fight scene in his apartment, they're vaguely web-like, but not enough for me to say, oh, that's a Spider-Man knockoff. Why does he have Spider-Man powers?
And I always liked the tendril aspect of Venom's powers more than, the webbing and, the straight knockoff of Spider-Man's powers.
Right.
So to this seems intriguing to me. The fact that they're doing the origin apart from Spider-Man. Even though I absolutely 100% want to see this character and Tom Holland's character cross over in a Spider-Man movie fairly soon.
The look of Venom at the end of this trailer is so spot on to the comics. You could argue, I think, that it's not a Spider-Man look, but more of like an alien look, right? Because when in your standard depiction of aliens, like they have sort of like those big kind of eyes. They're similar to Spider-Man's lenses.
Yeah.
So I think you could justify his look.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of like a xenomorph, from the Aliens franchise.
But with eyes.
As long as he ends up being a Spider-Man villain or anti-hero.
I know, they're really trying to sell the anti-hero thing.
Yeah, which I don't know if I like. I like it being more ambiguous than them straight out labeling him as an anti-hero in this.
Yeah. When they pitched the idea of a Venom film, I thought it was going to have more horror elements. And they're sort of there early on in the trailer in the lab with like, people like on the floor kind of writhing and then like breaking out of their cells and stuff like that. It's not going to be scary, I don't think. This is definitely not like the rated R film that I thought we were going to get. So far, it appears that way.
Venom looks pretty scary, does he not?
He looks cool. I don't think he looks scary. I think he looks cool.
His voice is so cool, I think.
Yeah.
That's an interesting aspect that we haven't seen on film of the character. Granted, we've only seen Venom on film once before in Spider-Man 3. But yeah, that whole internal voice where it really sells the idea of another personality there and referring to them as we and things like that. That's really cool.
That voice is cool, the Venom voice. And when he says, like, we can do whatever we want or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great little bit of physical acting right there when Tom Hardy's being pressed up against the wall and shaking and things like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
You could definitely see that Eddie Brock is like a reluctant host. I was convinced, especially based off the first trailer, from the scenes like of him getting like the MRI or whatever was happening, that they were going to go the route where he has cancer, like what happened in the comic.
Oh, yeah.
And like Venom sort of kept him alive in a way. But now seeing him do like all these crazy like motorcycle stunts and stuff like that, I'm not so sure.
I didn't like the motorcycle effect that much.
No, me neither.
Where he like flies off his motorcycle.
It's like, whoa! I don't know. It was dumb.
I know exactly what you meant. But
it's
yeah.
Like, who's going so fast that they're going to ramp off of a street and just go flying that high in the air?
It must be like a really dangerous street.
I know.
Especially if this takes place in New York. Do they have huge hills like that in New York?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. I thought it was pretty flat there. But anyway, yeah, in all, a little bit more excited for this.
Is it redeemed from the first trailer for you?
It's somewhat redeemed. I'm still skeptical. We'll see. As long as this road ends up in a Spider-Man film, I'm for it.
I'm still interested in the cast. I'm still interested in the people who are making the film.
Yeah.
But so far, I don't think I personally am sold on the film yet. And that brings us to our question of the week.
So besides Venom or the Joker, because that's a little obvious, what Marvel or DC villain would you like to see headline their own solo film? What Marvel or DC villain could headline their own solo film?
Yeah.
Go ahead and write into us on our Instagram, our Twitter, or Facebook, or you can email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. And on those social media sites, just do a search for Dynamic Duel Podcast and you'll find us.
Right.
We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media and announce it next episode. All right. So the final Cloak and Dagger trailer has come out. The show comes out in a little over a month. And it's interesting. They introduced a lot more of the plot.
Sort of.
This whole time they've been teasing kind of what's going on here. But now we see that we have two teens in New Orleans. And they're part of the Divine Duo, I think is what this lady referred to them as.
Yeah.
And I guess every time something bad happens in New Orleans, there's a divine duo that pops up to set things right.
Or it's like once a generation or something like that.
Yeah, once a generation. Or the divine pairing, I think is what they're referred to as.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There are some really questionable moments in this trailer, though, such as when Cloak and Dagger touch each other, they go to like this weird,
like other plane,
parallel dimension or something like that. And Dagger's telling Cloak that he just has to open this door and he'll become a god or something like that.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
I'm like, what the fuck?
What is this?
I have no idea what's going on.
Is this Cloak and Dagger?
Yeah, what is this supposed to be? We haven't seen them in their final costumes up to this point yet. I assumed that the sheet that Cloak wears for much of this marketing was his final costume, but we get our first look at what is his final cloak in the middle of this trailer.
Perhaps.
No, it is his final cloak because it looks straight out of the comics. It has a pretty cool embroidered design on it, kind of.
I just think he gets like a new blanket every time, or like he just like grabs one. I don't know. I would be surprised if like the Dagger character, if she actually gets like a full white outfit. I would be really surprised.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
I don't know what else to say really about the show. It's so far from what I know of Cloak and Dagger that I almost don't know how to react to this because it looks semi-interesting, just different. And
is this going to be set in the MCU?
It's supposed to be set in the MCU.
Well, I guess,
yes.
yeah, because it's on a Disney network, so they would do that.
Right. There's a few quick action shots toward the end of this with Dagger using her light knives.
Yeah.
And she stabs a lot of stuff in this, you know?
Yeah,
she's
she
like
does.
Stabbing walls.
With like a real knife. She doesn't come across as like the most heroic of persons.
She seems a little unstable.
Yeah. And it also seems pretty like relevant. Like there's some interesting scenes where I'm not sure what's going on. I mean, you obviously see, what's Cloak's name?
Tyrone?
Tyrone. You see him like get shot at. And then, like, you see him, like, running from some cops, and there's, like, a noose in the frame. And it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any sort of, like, racist plotline where he has to deal with, I don't know, Confederates or something like that.
Yeah. You do get, like, you know, more displays of his power as well, which is interesting. Because I remember, like, the first time I saw, like, the sneak peek or the trailer, like, I did not see his powers. But he's definitely, you know, shooting out, like, these dark kind of shadows and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see how they all use their powers because we definitely see Cloak use like teleportation and he shoots darkness out and stuff like that.
Dagger has the light knives.
Dagger just has the light knives.
Yeah,
and she's like scraping walls and vandalizing shit. It's like, all right.
Yeah, they have a cool power set. I'm excited. I've always liked these characters. I'm excited to do a dual episode with them around the time that this show debuts.
Yeah. And
sharing their histories and powers with everyone.
Yeah, if I watch the show, which I probably won't, it'll be because of their powers and how cool of a pairing they are.
Yeah. I'll watch the show for sure. I'll watch the pilot for sure. But I think that is everything we have for the news. So let's go ahead and get into the review of Avengers Infinity War. So just a quick reminder that if you have not seen Avengers Infinity War yet, don't listen to this episode. This is a spoiler review, so we're going to be talking about everything that happens in the movie, and a lot happens that could be considered spoilers.
Yeah, I'm glad to be talking about this finally. I remember when I first got out of the theater, after we watched the film, my wife and I, we exited the theater on the wrong side of the building, so we had to walk around. And, you know, she had some questions because she hasn't seen all of the Marvel films yet. And so I was explaining them to her. We were talking about the ending. I was explaining the ending to her right as we were crossing the front of the movie theater. And there was this guy on his phone. And I talked about what happened at the end. And he just looks up and he's like, oh, like gives this audible sigh. And I'm just like, oh, shit. I can't believe I just did that. And this guy's like bigger than me. So I'm just like, Barbara, come on, let's go. Let's go to the car before I get my ass kicked.
For giving away spoilers.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience where after the movie, my friends and we all kind of got around in a circle in the theater lobby, and we were just talking about the film before we split up and, you know, went home. And I think someone had mentioned Loki's death,
right,
which happens early on in the film. And somebody walking by let out an audible, yeah, we're assholes. We should have known better than to do that. So you have to be really careful with this stuff. So you said that your wife had a lot of questions because she hasn't seen a lot of the films prior.
Right.
What did she think of the film?
She thought it was all right. She liked Black Panther a lot more.
The movie Black Panther?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this film is truly amazing. It is everything that I wanted
It is ballsy.
From it.
It is ballsy AF.
Yes. I think a lot of people will have different opinions of it depending on how invested they are in the characters in the movie.
Yeah.
If they haven't seen a lot of the previous movies or they aren't that invested in the characters, this is just going to be a spectacle film, a popcorn film. But I think if you are knowledgeable of the characters and their stories and their arcs thus far, this movie is just flat out incredible.
It has the potential to be kind of like a shitty experience for some people. I remember, our boss texted us right after he saw the film, and he was like, "What the fuck was this bullshit?"
Yeah, he didn't like the ending.
No.
Because, it's not a happy ending. A lot of characters die, Thanos wins, and it turns out that this is the first part of a 2-part film, essentially.
And I don't think they marketed that well enough.
No, well, the directors have come out and said that these are 2 completely different films. They're separate films, which may turn out to be the case, but it has to continue this story. It has to kind of show us what happens after, half the universe dies. So it is essentially the first part of a 2-part film.
Right.
No matter what they say.
And there's the biggest spoiler right there.
But yeah, I think if you're knowledgeable with the characters, I think this movie means a whole lot more. If I could sum up the film in one word, it would be unprecedented. For the scale of the film, the number of characters and storylines to juggle, I personally can't imagine a better film.
It's a great culmination of 10 years of lead up. It's like this film was a sequel to every single one of Marvel's previous films almost.
Yeah, I had someone ask me, like, what films do I need to see before this one? And I was like,
all of them.
Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, a lot of them. At least the ones, like, within the past 2 or 3 years, I would say. I like that the film had guts. Like, one of the criticisms against these type of superhero films is the lack of consequences. Where, like,
oh, this had huge balls.
Yeah, a lot happens, but nothing really changes film over film. I personally don't think that's the case with these movies, but the people who say that certainly can't say that about this film.
Yeah, it's definitely unprecedented. It's definitely, I don't know how influential it's going to be, but it definitely changes things across the entire universe. Mm-hmm. Is Ant-Man going to take place after this or before this, do you know?
We don't know when chronologically Ant-Man and the Wasp will take place. I would assume that it would have to take place before this film, unless they're like the new big heroes in this world with half a population.
Right.
But I think it takes place before. And of course, Captain Marvel, which also comes out before Avengers 4, takes place in the 90s. So.
I'm just wondering, like, how influential will this film be across all the Marvel properties? And not just the Marvel Studios films. Like, is Venom, is half the population going to be dead in Venom? Or, in Cloak and Dagger, what we were just talking about. They're all supposed to take place in the same universe.
Right.
Like, is Netflix and ABC, are they going to have to, like, lay off half of their casts for, like, this next upcoming season?
Well, they should address the disappearance. I don't know if they should lay off half the casts.
Or Luke Cage, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, they should definitely address it. I would, at least, especially Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which seems to have the most movie references in it.
Yeah.
The Netflix shows, not so much. I'm not sure what they'll refer to it as.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, like, how big of an impact this is going to have across anything else, or if it's just going to continue into, the next Avengers film. Because we're probably not going to see any reference to it in Ant-Man or Captain Marvel, because I think those take place beforehand. If it doesn't leave a big impact in the universe or across the TV shows that are associated with it, I think it definitely will had a big impact on the audience, because the people have reached out to us saying, like, I need a support group for this film. Our friend, coworker talked about how his daughter was crying and stuff like that.
Yeah. It has a huge impact. I liken this film to The Empire Strikes Back in terms of its impact. That one ended on a sort of cliffhanger, and like The Dark Knight, the villain essentially wins in the end. And I appreciate that about this film, because usually you come away with from these movies feeling satisfied that, good has triumphed over evil, but it's always a little bit more interesting when it's the other way around.
Yeah, this film is Marvel's Dark Knight, I think. That's probably controversial, but it was successful in all the same ways I think that The Dark Knight was, in that, like, it was able to juggle so much so well. And it was, like a story that we never heard before. And it resonates sort of like almost on like an entirely different level from other films. It was like so philosophical.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure. My favorite MCU film up to this point has been The Avengers. To me, The Avengers was an impressive feat of filmmaking. For Joss Whedon to balance that many characters in one movie and have it actually be good, not just good, really good, great. At the time, that was unprecedented and seemed technically impossible. I think that Justice League proved that making these kind of movies is no walk in the park. which is
Okay.
which is not a knock on Justice League. That movie was good. It was fine, but it could have been so much more. And I think that Infinity War is so much more. This movie is like the first Avengers movie times 10. It was like in the comics, those big universe-spanning crossovers that happen where like no one character takes center stage and every character plays a part. It was like perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
I think this is one of the few films where it actually improved upon the storyline that was in the comic. I thought this was much more
pretty
interesting.
different. It was pretty different. But yeah, I think maybe Thanos' motivations were more interesting. And I think the way that the characters kind of faced the challenge as opposed to just, going up and attacking Thanos straight on.
In outer space, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a little bit more interesting. But the way that this movie handled all the different storylines, I mean, it has been done before, like Independence Day or like Crash. Like, this movie was like Crash, but instead of racism, it had kick-ass space battles, I thought it was really high quality. So kudos to the scriptwriters for sure. Going back to the first Avengers movie real quick, I rewatched it, and I have to say that nowadays in like a post-Civil War world, like some of the moments and dialogue from the first Avengers film are less mature than what I'm used to now. Like, I couldn't imagine Captain America currently shouting, "Not today," when kicking Loki in the head, And I think Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who wrote Avengers Infinity War, I think they're just simply better writers than Joss Whedon. Mm-hmm. I think they're the real heroes of the story here to come up with it. What they came up with is just wow. DC should hire them for real. So I think this is actually my new favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
This is my favorite Marvel film. Yeah. Hands down.
Yeah.
You know what this film reminded me of? Like I think the closest DC has come to this film is probably Watchmen.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like juggling storylines and stuff like that, and just good writing. Mm-hmm. But again, as I said earlier, this film actually I think has something to say. Like it has a more thematic resonance than most Marvel films, because most Marvel films I just dismiss as popcorn flicks, popcorn blockbusters.
Yeah.
But I think this one, when I drove away from the theater, and just thinking about the film, there's no way you can't appreciate it. Yeah, again, it is my favorite Marvel film.
Yeah, I only have two gripes with it. The two gripes don't really involve what was in the film, but rather what wasn't. My first gripe was that we didn't see what happened with Xandar. I would have really liked to have seen Thanos attack Xandar and get the Power Stone, because I thought I liked Xandar from the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, and I thought that would have been a cool battle to see.
Yeah. How did he defeat the Nova Corps? Holy cow!
Yeah, and I was hoping that maybe it would end with him destroying the Nova Corps, and then there's one last Nova Centurion, and it's Richard Rider, and he has the full Nova Force at his disposal.
Right.
But I'm starting to think that they may not ever introduce Nova as the character is known in the comics, and just keep it with this police force.
They could always do a flashback.
They could. But I think you can't have Nova and Captain Marvel simultaneously in the film universe, because they might be compared too much to each other, basically, because they're both humans from Earth that go up into space, and they have a similar power set and a similar insignia and things like that. So
true.
It makes me think that they're kind of avoiding Nova at this point. My other gripe was no Hawkeye, which I'm a big Hawkeye fan. If you listen to our Green Arrow versus Hawkeye fight, I kind of feel like they've given the character the shaft in these movies, and the fact that he wasn't in this film didn't sit well with me. But I do hear that he has a great arc in the next film, Avengers 4. And the rumor is that his family dies during this great culling, and that he kind of goes into like a dark place and becomes Ronin, and fights alongside the Avengers in that way.
One thing that bothered me in this film is that at the end, when he killed half the universe, you could tell that they killed off the characters who still had films left on their contract. Because the entire Guardians of the Galaxy shouldn't have just been half the team. I mean, it was that way in the comic, in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline.
Yeah.
I guess it's random.
Yeah. Well, it's not really random. Yeah, of course they want to give the original Avengers, who all have like one film left in their contract, one last hurrah in Avengers 4.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good move because it'll make the next movie a little bit more focused. But yeah, that's totally the reason why they survived.
Yeah. I mean, I think another gripe I heard amongst quite a few people was that like they expected that they were going to see much more like Steve Rogers and much more of these characters that they've grown attached to and wanted to see more of. But like those characters had such a smaller role in this film, less screen time for sure.
Yes.
Than Thanos. It really was his film.
Yeah.
That
And I like that it was Thanos' film, and that none of the other heroes really kind of held the spotlight for too long.
Right.
Of course, someone's always going to get the shaft when you have this many characters in the film, but I thought for what they had, for what their plot was, they did it well.
Yeah.
They served their role within the story.
Yeah.
And we'll get more to that during the character breakdown. One last note regarding the overall film, I thought it was hella funny. My favorite jokes were when the Guardians of the Galaxy brought Thor upon their ship and they start talking about how buff he is compared to Quill.
Yeah.
And Quill was like, you know what? I'm going to commit. I'm going to get a Bowflex. I'm going to buy some dumbbells. And it's a quick little throwaway line where Rocket's like, you can't eat dumbbells, Quill.
What did they say to him too? They were like, "You're like one hamburger away from being fat," or something like that. I was like, "Damn!"
Yeah, that was hilarious.
No, I thought Drax was the funniest character in this film.
Oh, where he was like, "I've learned how to be invisible." That part.
Yeah,
He's like, how long have you been standing there? An hour.
But just like anytime he was in a scene, he just cracked me up.
Tell him about the dance off. The dance off, like Footloose, exactly like Footloose.
Is Footloose still one of the greatest movies ever made? Never was.
Speaking of that exchange, my other favorite joke from the film was when Star-Lord was trying to convince him that he should come up with the plan. And he was like, you know what? I'm only 50% human. So the 50% part of me that's dumb is 100% you. And Tony Stark was like, your math is blowing my mind right now. I thought that was great. And of course, in the end battle, when Thor and Groot and Rocket join the Wakanda fight, Thor introduces Groot to Captain America, and Groot says, I am Groot. And Steve says, I am Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. Those are my three favorite jokes from the film.
Classic Marvel humor.
Yeah, it's solid.
You're right. There was no bathos in it, from what I could tell.
At least not at the end.
Right. I think if there was any bathos kind of moment, it's when...
Can you remind us what bathos is?
Oh, bathos is when you break up a serious moment with a bit of humor.
Yeah, Marvel does it a lot.
Marvel does it a lot. And sometimes it's used in a good way, and sometimes it unintentionally ruins a moment. Mm-hmm. Or it has the potential to do that. But I think when Gamora was explaining to Star-Lord that, you know, she knows something, he would need to kill her, promise me. And then they have Drax. That's bathos. Mm-hmm. It's breaking up that serious moment. Yeah. Because that's a serious thing to ask, you know, someone you love to kill you.
Right.
And I think it wasn't bad in that moment. I don't think.
No. So let's get into our character breakdown. And the way I kind of broke up the character breakdown, it's not like chronological. And we're not going to discuss every character. Sometimes we're going to talk about groups of characters. So just go with it. We're going to start off with Thanos, since this is his film. I thought it was a great performance by Josh Brolin and the visual effects team.
It was a subdued performance. But, you know, from the other films that Thanos has been on, I thought he was going to be a little bit more aggressive.
Menacing.
A little bit more menacing, you know, calling everybody boy all the time.
Yeah.
It was definitely subdued.
Yeah, it was nice, subtle. Kudos to the VFX team. I can't imagine they're not going to win the Best VFX Academy Award. The visuals in this film are just so damn good.
They're
especially
really good. They're really
that
good.
Motion capture stuff.
There were some instances with like they did a really good job on Thanos. Like Thanos always looked real to me, but like his team, Black Order,
yeah,
I could totally tell those guys were fake.
A little bit, yeah, especially Proxima Midnight.
Yeah,
because she had the most human face.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, yeah, great special effects.
Yeah. I like how they changed Thanos' motivation from his love of the personified character of death in the Marvel Universe to be instead the salvation of the universe through dispassionate genocide, essentially.
I think it's super ballsy to come up with this solution for overpopulation and like need and like resources. It's like, you know, what is the answer to overpopulation? Is the next film even going to address that? Or are they just going to worry about undoing what Thanos did?
Probably.
Because, like, what? Yeah, you know, he poses this question, and no one comes up with a better answer.
One of the alternative answers to genocide in acquiring the Infinity Gauntlet would be to double the number of resources in the universe.
Oh, absolutely. Why didn't he do that?
Because I think something that they don't really address in the film is that, and something you would know if you were a fan of the character from the comics, is that he enjoys killing.
I hope they address that in the next film.
Yeah. His intentions, his motivations are not as altruistic as he believes them to be. I don't think he knows how evil he really is. Deep down, he enjoys killing. Mm-hmm. And that's why he does what he does, as opposed to the alternative, you know, creating more resources.
Yeah. Did you want to see Hela in this film? Like, would you have enjoyed it more?
Hela?
Yeah, if she was like the personified death.
No. I like what they did with this character. It makes more sense than like dark romance. Mm-hmm. Though I will admit that these motivations kind of make him similar to Ozymandias from Watchmen, who also felt that the path to peace was through genocide.
Yeah.
They didn't really rip it off from him.
Oh, they totally did.
It was close. It was closer than I would have liked for comfort. I also thought it was an important little comment made by Ebony Maw near the beginning, where he tells Cull Obsidian to let Thanos have his fun. It was a great way to kind of explain Thanos' varying power levels, where in some cases he could he turns people to ribbon and blocks, and in other cases, when he's going up against Iron Man, he's actually, gets hurt enough to bleed. I think the character enjoys a challenge. He enjoys toying with his opponents.
Mm-hmm. That was a great way to establish like his strength and stuff, because this is the first time we've seen Thanos in action in all the Marvel films. So to have him go up against the Hulk right away, I thought was a really smart idea, just to show how strong he is and how tactful he is. Yeah, to show that he's more strong than the Hulk himself and a better fighter. He's not just a brawler battling wildly. He's trained, he's a badass. He has experience. And yeah, he has fun toying with his victims. Interesting traits that are subtly peppered throughout like that. I did have a question of why he didn't bring Gamora back from the dead once he got the Soul Stone, but I'm just thinking that he either accepted her as a casualty of his destiny, or it was just maybe one of the rules of the Soul Stone that you can't resurrect the person that you sacrificed to get the Soul Stone. Yeah, because he is really broken up about her death. Yeah, which was surprising. I think that was the biggest surprise of this film. Like I wasn't surprised. I think as a lot of people were with especially like the end of the film, because I figured that was going to happen. But it did have some surprises, and that was one of them. The fact that he actually did love Gamora, and it was a surprise to her as well. Yeah, and that was really hard to come to terms with. I think watching the film. Mm-hmm. It's like this monster not only is capable of love enough to, shed a tear, he actually feels love. Yeah. But that he would also make a sacrifice like that. Because, I have a daughter. Yeah. And it's like, it was just wow. It was just wow. Yeah. I think that's it for Thanos. I want to talk about the Black Order. As a group, none of these characters were nearly as interesting as I thought they would be. They were throwaway. Yeah, they were pretty throwaway compared to, their fleshed out personalities in the comics. I thought this movie would take the time to build up each one with their personalities, because they are pretty interesting. Like in the comics, quite a few of these guys end up betraying Thanos. But in the film, the plot doesn't really call for them to be much more than Thanos' powerful lackeys. No, they're sort of, just like the upgraded version of like the generic gray, black suited fodder for the heroes to take out. Right. And they were wearing all black, which I guess is appropriate for their names, but it's like the Chitauri or like the Parademons, they're just generic. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it would have been nice to have seen them a little bit more developed, but I understand why they didn't do that, because it's really Thanos' show. Yeah. And, you don't want to steal the spotlight from your main guy. Ebony Maw stood out. He was cool. He did a little bit. Yeah, he had different powers in this than he does in the comics. He had really cool telekinesis in this film, as opposed to just, the power of suggestion. Right. Seeing this, I was like, why does the X-Men movies do this? Right? It's like, why are the X-Men this badass? Yeah. Or, Phoenix. Like Phoenix, yeah, definitely. But yeah, my issue with the Black Order is more of an issue with non-inclusion rather than with the film itself. This could have easily been a 3-hour film for me. I would have enjoyed it just as much. Oh, yeah. I would have preferred it to be a 3-hour film, just because I was having such a good time the whole time. But you got to cut some things. Let's talk about Spider-Man. Tom Holland continued his great performance from Homecoming. The character really proved himself to be a huge asset to Earth's heroes, from the fight in Central Park to his plan to rescue Doctor Strange to his protection of the knocked out Guardians during the fight on Titan. Yeah, I liked how he got his suit. I wasn't exactly sure how they were going to work it into the story, but it was really well done. Yeah. I think the fact that he was like, get item number 30, whatever, and then it shoots up to him. Yeah, it was 17A, I think. Oh. A lot of these plot points that called back to previous films, they just worked out really perfectly. Like that moment right there. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, good thing you guys didn't have Spider-Man accept the suit at the end of that film, because now you have this cool moment where Iron Man gets to save him. Right. And he gets to go up in space with it.
So yeah, he was a great asset to the team, but still charmingly naive.
Yeah.
It's such a great character.
I love the fact that he came up with solutions to problems based off of movies that he's seen.
Yeah, like how
Like
he did
Aliens.
how he did with Empire Strikes Back and the Civil War film. I think his death, Spider-Man's death, was the most emotional death in the whole movie. That one actually choked me up. It like brought a tear to my eye, especially the second time I saw the film. Just the way he was like, "No, I don't want to go."
Yeah.
He was crying and hugging Robert Downey Jr. It was just an emotional moment, the most emotional moment for sure.
I agree.
Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. was great here as he's always been. I loved the new bleeding edge armor.
It was really sleek, really streamlined.
So powerful, adaptive, and I just think the design of it was really cool. And the designs of the things that he was able to create, from the shields to, the extra repulsor blasters that he would segment off of his back.
Yeah.
The swords.
I do kind of wish like they didn't get rid of his like internal arc reactor in Iron Man 3, because like they keep needing to come up with excuses for him to have that, because it's so iconic to the character. And I guess this time it just houses like nano.
It doesn't just house it. I mean, it is an arc reactor still. It powers the nanobites. They need an energy source.
Right.
So it's just a more powerful arc reactor that also happens to store the nanobites. The nanobots.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's more like a cool little pocket than anything else.
Right.
Yeah. His power level has been upgraded for sure. Like, he was able to make Thanos bleed. I thought that was really cool when he went toe to toe with Thanos. Obviously, Thanos was just toying with him, but the fact that he was actually able to, draw that first blood. Well, not first blood.
Drop of blood.
Drop of blood. I'm pretty sure Thanos got the first blood in every instance. But that was really cool. I was super shocked when Thanos stabbed him. That was probably the most shocking moment in the whole film.
I thought he was going to die then.
So did I. Yeah, I was like, oh, he's going to die, but, they'll bring him back in the sequel or whatever. I did not know that Doctor Strange was going to save him at that point. We still don't know why he saved him, but we have to assume that Doctor Strange saved Tony Stark because he knew that Tony Stark was the key in reversing all of this. From like the 14,500,000 whatever alternate futures that he witnessed.
Right.
Yeah. So let's go into Doctor Strange. He and Tony initially had a much more combative relationship than I thought they would. Less so once they agreed on a plan.
I wasn't surprised by that because I think they have similar personalities, I would say. It made sense to me, their sort of combative relationship. Although, like, the douchebag and stuff I thought was a little uncalled for.
Well, what do you do besides make balloon animals or something like that? He's
Yeah.
like, protect your reality, douchebag. I'm glad that eventually they grew quite close and Doctor Strange kind of sacrificed himself.
Doctor Strange was so badass in this film.
He is my favorite character.
He was so
in
much
this.
more badass in this film than he was, in his own film.
Yeah, to see his growth from the end of that movie to this one.
And Thor Ragnarok in the middle.
Yeah, like in the first movie, his power set was limited to creating whips and shields and portals, and he could fly. That was pretty much it, outside of the time stone.
Right.
But in this one, he was busting out protection spells. He used the winds of Watum. He used the crimson bands of Sidorak, is what it looks like. Those long ribbon things that wrapped around Thanos' arm.
Yeah.
He created that magic sword. So he doesn't just create whips now. He could create like those magic fire swords. That was really cool.
He was really holding his own against Thanos.
He self-duplicated. That was really cool.
That was cool.
Like he had like the multiple arms and stuff doing the hand gestures, and then he like split up into a lot of them.
Yeah.
There was that one spell where he turned like Thanos' debris that he fired at him or something to
like butterflies or
it was
something?
like butterfly fairies or something. Just so much more at disposal here. He felt much more like the Sorcerer Supreme.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for his next movie. That's gonna have to be just off the rails.
That got me excited for another Doctor Strange film. Because
sure.
I wasn't a big fan of the first one. I thought it was kind of like standard origin fare. But he was really cool in this.
Yeah.
The spectacle was amazing.
Yes. All right, let's talk about Star-Lord. Star-Lord, mainly he's mainly used as comic relief, but he was fucking hilarious in this movie.
He was the comic relief. He was the Deadpool for this universe.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I love when he was talking to Thor, or he was getting jealous of Thor talking to Gamora about their family problems, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I have family problems too.
Killed my dad.
My dad killed my mom. I had to kill my dad, which I would have to imagine is harder than killing a sister. But and I came out with both my eyes."
And he does make the biggest fatal flaw in this whole movie.
He does, and it was easy to be upset with him, but it's not like it was out of character. Like, if you think back to Guardians 2, the moment that he learned that Ego killed his mom, he just lost it.
Yeah.
Apparently, you don't mess with the people that Peter Quill loves because he will go crazy on you.
Yeah.
I think he did have a nice arc here from, the whole promise to kill Gamora to coming up with a plan to attack Thanos. I love that he was the one that came up with the plan to defeat Thanos, and he nearly succeeded if it wasn't for his own short temper. Because, in the comic books, he is like the cosmic strategist. He's the one that came up with a lot of the plans to defeat Annihilus in the Annihilation story and things like that. So yeah, I'm glad it was his plan. He was a great character. I know why he's not showing up in the next film is because, they're going to show up in Guardians 3 anyway. So I'm really looking forward to the Guardians 3 film once everything with the universe is set right again.
Yeah.
Gamora played a pivotal role in this story, both in terms of plot and emotion. Like, she was the one that knew where the Soul Stone was, like, which I don't think anyone had theorized before this film.
No. I called it once she was telling him, like, she knows something. I was like, oh, she knows where the Soul Stone is.
I didn't even know at that point.
I tried to whisper it to it, but, like, you were, like, 3 seats down. I was like, Joseph, she knows where the Soul Stone is. I was like, shut up. I told my wife, I was like, she knows where the Soul Stone is. Pass it down. My wife was like, no.
They always tout her as the deadliest woman in the universe, which you never really quite got to see in any of the films, but it was cool to see how deadly she was when she, quote, killed Thanos in the Reality Stone illusion.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
That flashback to her when she was a little girl, that was really powerful. He just gives her this weapon, this perfectly balanced weapon, while, like, her family is being killed behind her.
Yeah.
That was sad. That was heartbreaking.
It was. And he, like, shields her head as they're dying and stuff like that.
Yeah, it kind of, like, it alludes to the fact that, he definitely cares for her. He picked her out, but he's just so twisted.
He is.
I don't think he's necessarily trying to comfort her or anything like that. He's trying to teach her, but...
indoctrinate her, yeah.
Yeah. It's twisted.
Yeah. That little double switchblade came up a few other times in the course of this, both when she stabs him in the heart and kills him, and both when she tries to kill herself.
Yeah.
But he stops her by turning it into bubbles.
He turned a lot of things into bubbles.
It was... yeah, he did. That's kind of funny. It was devastating to see Thanos kill her, more so the second time I saw the movie, because you knew it was coming. The first time you weren't sure what was going to happen, and this time when you know it was coming and you just see all the build up to it, like Thanos' every expression and her lines and things like that, it's just super tragic, and it's probably the second most emotional part of the film for me.
There was no relief in her learning that he actually did love her.
Right.
Yeah, it was hard to watch.
Yeah. Let's talk about Thor. His arc was pretty simple. I liked it. I liked how he started out as a god who has lost literally everything. His home planet, his best friend, his brother, and, he risks his own life to become Earth's greatest chance at defeating Thanos.
Yeah.
And it becomes the closest at succeeding at that at the very end before Thanos snaps his fingers.
Yeah.
Most of all, I'm just really glad that he got an eye back, because I don't think the eye patch it didn't feel like Thor to me when he was wearing the eye patch.
I agree. Even if it came from Rocket Raccoon's anus.
That was hilarious.
That was so gross. He's like, I would have washed that first. I was like, no.
I think this is a great kind of continuation of the character
from Thor Ragnarok. He's always been sort of like a simpleton, but usually it was played like in the first film, like he's just out of his element, so he doesn't know things.
Right.
But they still kind of kept playing that up. He was definitely like a humorous character in this film still,
right,
from Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
He had a lot of jokes.
Joke for joke, Peter Quill's equal, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, not on purpose, obviously, but that's kind of the charm of the character, is that he makes jokes without knowing that he's making jokes.
Right.
Which is kind of funny.
Stormbreaker, that whole thing was interesting. I mean, I knew it was gonna happen. I don't understand how or why it was more powerful, or a weapon powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with the Infinity Gauntlet, because he used it just like Mjolnir. So does that mean Mjolnir was powerful enough to go toe-to-toe with the Infinity Gauntlet?
I don't know. I don't know how you judge the power of an item based on its mold in the forge, but you would have to imagine that it's imbued with greater magic than Mjolnir, because this one also actually had the power to summon the Bifrost.
That's
so
true.
There's some dark magic energy in it that Mjolnir didn't have. Yeah, it can do everything that Mjolnir could, including his ability to control it, its flight path, and its lightning ability. There was a really cool shot of him in this film where you're looking up at him, jumping up into the air, and the sky turns real cloudy, and then he slams the hammer on the ground. And that was a powerful move. It's nothing that we didn't see Mjolnir do, but I think the aesthetic of the hammer is what makes it so cool. The fact that it's part axe as well.
Yeah.
Like the Stormbreaker from the comics, although this is not that hammer, Beta Ray Bill's hammer. It looks a lot more like the Ultimate Thor's Mjolnir.
Yeah, does that have its own name?
Yeah, Mjolnir.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought I meant a different name.
Yeah. But yeah,
Ultimate Mjolnir.
I wonder if in a future, if they make another Thor movie, if he'll be giving up this hammer to Beta Ray Bill. Like if he meets Beta Ray Bill in the sequel. Because that'll just be in keeping with the comics.
If Marvel's smart, they would do that. Because you don't need to cast someone for that role. That's just a voice role. So they could do that as long as they wanted.
Yeah, pretty much. And then maybe he gets the real Mjolnir back or something. I don't know.
He went through a lot of hardship in this film. Like the hardships he went through in Thor Ragnarok, like they didn't end. Losing his brother, I think, was another hard thing. It was sad to see. I thought Loki was going to be a part of the Black Order. I thought he was going to join Thanos' team. I didn't think they were going to kill him.
I thought he was going to serve sort of like the Mephisto role from the comics during the Infinity Gauntlet story arc. I'm kind of glad that he didn't, though. Although, I wonder if he'll come back or if he's dead for sure.
For all we know, that was a duplicate. That would piss Thor off so much.
You never know. Although Thanos did say no resurrections this time, right after he killed him.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the rest of the Guardians. Rocket, Groot, Drax, and Mantis. Like Star-Lord, they were all used as comic relief.
Yeah.
Groot a lot of people found him funny, but I kind of was getting annoyed with him, like at how useless he was being.
Yeah.
Just on that video game. But I thought that when he saw Thor like sacrifice himself, and he kind of became like a role model for Groot, something like a heroic symbol to aspire to, and how he used his own branches to form the handle for Stormbreaker.
Maybe he reminded him of his former self, because he sacrificed himself to save the team as well.
Yeah, maybe. I
thought Groot was gonna die. I thought
he did die.
Well, he did, but I thought his arm becoming part of Stormbreaker's handle, because that was spoiled in the toys,
right?
Kind of signaled that Groot was going to sacrifice himself to help create this weapon for Thor. It didn't happen that way.
Yeah,
but I guess, is Groot really dead? Someone asked me, because we know he could grow back from a twig. Thor has, you could just break off a branch off of his handle or something like that.
I don't think that's how Groot works. I don't think you could break off a piece of him and then create another Groot that way. I think whatever twig that Rocket grabbed at the end of the first Guardians movie, it must have been, because each of those didn't grow into their own Groots.
That we know of.
Maybe if you planted Stormbreaker, it would work. Kind of like how Rocket had to plant that twig to become Groot again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a good question. Let's talk about the Hulk. The character of Bruce Banner has really changed since the Incredible Hulk movie. He went from a man on the run, who's afraid of himself, to a man who learns to control the monster, and now back to a man who has once again lost control, but in a different way.
Yeah.
I like that ever-evolving relationship between Banner and Hulk, and it was a little disappointing we didn't get to see the Hulk outside of the opening scene.
Right.
But I'm really looking forward to see where the Banner-Hulk relationship goes from here. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that the Hulk didn't want to come out because he was afraid. Because he was bested in battle by Thanos.
That's what I thought too, and I was glad to see that a lot of people felt the same. The Hulk usually perceives himself as the strongest one there is, so to be so completely and utterly destroyed by someone who is obviously stronger than him, I think, it made him feel fear maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
Something that he probably hasn't felt before.
I was surprised that he never came out, because I remember seeing in the trailers and stuff that, the shot of all of them running towards the camera and the Hulk was there. Nope, not in the film.
Misdirection.
You know what else wasn't in the film? Thanos' line where he says that he's going to have fun or enjoy bringing balance to the universe. I'm really glad that wasn't, because I never liked that line.
Yeah, I think after Gamora's death, that's not really something that he would say or could say, because
it would have been inappropriate.
Yeah, it would have been inappropriate. He's just so completely in mourning. That line would have had to have come before Gamora's death, and I'm not sure exactly when that would have taken place. So I think it was probably written for the trailers. So moving on to the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, their relationship wasn't as built up from the previous films as I would have liked, because it's pretty concrete here. You could really tell that they care for each other very deeply, and it's one of the emotional cruxes of the film. Vision is usually portrayed as one of the most powerful Avengers.
Oh my gosh, he was so weak in this film.
He was really nerfed here.
He was really nerfed, and Scarlet Witch was really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if it's his fault so much, because the only time he ever fought, it was against Corvus Glaive. And Corvus's weapon, he couldn't phase through.
Right.
Yeah, his sidelining by Corvus consistently stabbing him was really counterbalanced by the Scarlet Witch, who seems to really have mastered her powers here and come into her own.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a lot of the Avengers, from Tony to Thor to Wanda, they've seemed to kind of leveled up a little bit. That scene where she's taking out those like wheel diggers kind of machines.
Yeah.
She like threw them up in the air and stuff like that. That was some pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, that's straight out of Jack Kirby.
Yeah. Captain America had less to do here than I thought he would, though he had probably the greatest entrance to date in the MCU so far. Every time I've seen the film, when he steps out of those shadows after catching Proxima Midnight's spear, people just go crazy. I don't know if it's the hair or if it's the character himself. They just go crazy.
I know, people got a little too excited. I was like, okay, guys.
I was like, shut up,
settle
nerds.
down.
I'm watching the movie.
I know. I didn't think it was that great of an intro. He's just like in the shadows behind a train. I don't understand like what makes him. I mean, I understand what makes him badass is the super soldier serum, but like Black Widow, she shouldn't have been able to kick that much ass against an alien, threat level that big.
Well, she was the one that was able to do serious damage against Corvus. She was the one that kind of knocked him out. And at first I was wondering like, well, she shouldn't be powerful enough to do that because Corvus is super powerful. But she does it with Proxima Midnight's staff.
Yeah.
Which is also extremely powerful. Has the power of a star. So it makes sense that in her using that weapon specifically, she would be able to take out Corvus if she used it properly, which she did.
Mm-hmm. Steve did have a really good line in this film. And, when Vision asked him, is one life worth...
Billions?
Worth billions.
He said, we don't trade lives or something like that.
Right.
Is that the
line?
line?
Was essentially, he said, no, but it should be, or something like that.
Yeah.
It just shows, like, how strong that character is and how true to, like, his archetype he is. He's not willing to compromise. He's not willing to risk even one life. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
They nail his character. I don't understand why they're able to do it so effortlessly with his character and not someone like Superman.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, they should hire Marcus McFeely.
Those guys have said they're already interested in like writing tons more Marvel films, so I doubt that's going to happen.
Well, just everybody has a price. They could really save the DC universe if they went over because their Civil War script and this script was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Captain America also had another great line in this that kind of settled the whole Civil War thing when he was talking to Secretary Ross, and Ross was like, you think we forgive you? And he's like, I'm not asking for forgiveness, and I'm beyond asking for permission. If you get in our way, we'll fight you too. Like, I was like, fuck yeah, Cap. You go, boy. You're my boy, Cap. Let's talk about Black Panther. He also had less to do here than I thought he would.
Yeah, I thought he was going to have a major role after his film.
Yeah. I did think it was cool how Wakanda provided the setting for the final stand against Thanos.
We knew that was going to happen from the trailers.
Yeah. I really like seeing him lead his army and also use that cool kinetic absorption suit again.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were surprised to see him among those that died at the end.
Yeah, I was surprised.
But I'm like, come on, we're going to see him again in the Black Panther sequels. Let the guys who only have one more film in their contract get their last chance to shine.
I think that's why I like this film so much, is because it was so ballsy, and I know that the next film is going to kind of undo what this film did. I'm not sure how much, but we know Black Panther is going to return. We know Doctor Strange is going to return and the Guardians are going to return.
Yeah.
But for now, just this moment in time, with the reaction it was able to garner from everyone, it's something really special and really, really powerful.
As a standalone movie, if you don't think of it as a half of a whole.
Yeah. It's incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah, it really is. It's this generation's Empire Strikes Back. For sure.
It's this generation's Dark Knight.
Getting to visit Wakanda again was great. This film is really going to help Black Panther's already impressive box office. It already grossed more than $1 billion.
Yeah, it's
worldwide.
It was like in the top 8 box office films leading up into this film, and I think this film put it in the top 5 again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I think a lot of people were like, oh, crap, Infinity War is here. Let me watch Black Panther, and then back-to-back go see Infinity War or something like that.
That's cool. I got to do that. All right, let's get the last of the characters out of the way. Black Widow, Falcon, War Machine, Winter Soldier, Okoye. These were the characters that were the most shortchanged. I mean, again, it's
Black
understandable.
Widow was shortchanged.
You don't think so?
No.
I didn't think she had less to do than Captain America. And again, in a film this packed, I didn't have a huge problem with it. They each had like a cool moment or line or two.
Yeah.
They were more foot soldiers than anything else, though, for the fight.
Yeah.
But it was cool just to have them in the story.
It's cool just to be able to use those characters in that way, though. Because they're so pre-established in this universe that you could kind of get away with it and it still means something to you. It's not like, like some of the Wakandan soldiers, who they were in a film too. You care about them, but like you don't know their names.
Yeah.
These characters, you knew their names. Mm-hmm. So like even if they weren't used to their full potential, like you still cared about them.
Right. Because they've been used to their potential before.
Right.
Yeah. All right. That's all the characters. Let's get down into the story breakdown. Let's make this quick because there's a lot here. All right. The movie starts off on the Asgardian ship. We have the death of Heimdall. I thought it was a really cool last act for him.
I did not think that was Idris Elba.
What? Really?
Yeah. He looked like a completely different actor. I don't know why. And even his voice felt like was different.
It was Idris Elba.
I didn't believe it until I saw the credits. I was like, it was Idris Elba. Because I know, later on we'll probably get into Hugo Weaving playing Red Skull.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought that was him. Yeah.
I thought it was him too. But, when you see the credits, you're like, oh shit, it wasn't Hugo Weaving. Hugo Weaving is probably really pissed off right now.
I know. He's like, man, I really wish I didn't say all those horrible things about my experience on Captain America, the First Avenger.
Yeah.
It was kind of a great little moment for him.
Yeah.
For sure.
It was a nice closure for that sort of thread.
Yeah. I really liked the line that Loki gave where he's talking to Thanos and he's like, first of all, I'm not Asgardian. Second of all, we have a Hulk. And then Hulk jumps in.
Yeah.
That was such a great fight. That Hulk loses and then he gets sent down to Earth by Heimdall's last act. And then Loki dies, which Loki actually came really close to killing Thanos with that knife when he pledges to him and then betrays him.
Yeah. How do you think Thanos knew about it? Was it because he had No, he didn't have the Mind Stone. What did he have? He had the space and the power. Never mind.
Yeah. I think he just has quick reflexes.
Yeah.
Because that blade got really close to his neck. It's too bad that Loki couldn't do it. So then we go into the Sanctum Sanctorum where Banner warns Wong and Doctor Strange that Thanos is coming, which leads to the New York fight.
That was sort of like perfect coincidence that he landed there.
I think Heimdall pointed him there.
Because he had seen that Thor had been there?
He probably knew of Doctor Strange because of Thor's experience in the last movie.
I'll buy it.
Yeah,
I'll buy it.
It works. I really like after Doctor Strange recruited Iron Man and they go outside to see Ebony Maw and Cull Obsidian attacking, and Ebony Maw starts spouting off his whole speech that he gives to people that they're invading, and Iron Man interrupts him and he's like, I'm sorry, Earth is closed. It was just great. This is when we see that Bruce Banner's having problems turn into the Hulk, and there was a great line by Tony Stark where he's like, Bruce, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards.
That was great.
So Tony puts on his bleeding edge armor, which again was so cool. Spidey ends up seeing the spaceship and he joins the fight. This was such a cool fight. We got to see Doctor Strange use the Wands of Watum and he was using the portals. The way it ended, Wong sending Cull Obsidian into the Arctic or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Cull tried to jump back in through the portal and Wong sealed it off like a badass, right as his hand was reaching through and he cut off his hand. That was a badass moment.
Yeah, that was cool.
Wong is a badass. I like him.
Doctor Strange should have just done that to Thanos' arm.
He should have. Doctor Strange's actions toward the latter half of the story kind of confuse me, but you have to kind of really chalk it up to he knows something that you don't.
Yeah.
He didn't chop off Thanos' arm for a reason. He fought him still for a reason. And hopefully they explain that well enough in the next film.
Right.
And I have to imagine it might have something to do with maybe they turned Thanos maybe, or they convince him to be a good person or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can only speculate. We see Iron Spidey. Spidey gets the new suit when he boards the ship, and Iron Man boards the ship as well. And they head out into space, and back on Earth, Bruce Banner finds Steve's cell phone and gives him a call. Then we go out into space, and the Guardians are answering the Asgardian ship's distress signal. They find Thor. They bring him upon the ship and decide to split up into two groups, with Thor, Rocket, and Groot going to Nidavellir. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And the others going to Nowhere, where Thor tells them that the Collector has the Reality Stone.
Right.
So they split up. And then we go to Scotland, where we meet Vision and Scarlet Witch. It looks like Vision... They mentioned that he's evolving, but I can't imagine that his human appearance was anything more than a holographic projection.
Yeah.
Just a really good one. They get attacked by Corvus and Proxima, which I thought that was a pretty good action-packed fight. had a lot of stakes there.
This film overall had really good action.
I really like how the Scarlet Witch was able to like fly and like protect herself and Vision.
She was a badass in this film
with her telekinesis, like telekinetic shields to soften their landings and stuff like that. Yeah.
In the trailer, like I thought Scarlet Witch was like dodging like a blast or something, but she was really like flinging Proxima Midnight like over her, and it was like throwing her into like a bus or something. It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
she held her own.
Yeah, definitely. It was at this moment where I was like, oh, this film has a lot of action, and I like it. Cap returns at this point and rescues Vision and the Scarlet Witch, and they fly back to the Avengers headquarters back in New York. Back in space, Spider-Man and Iron Man, they meet up with each other. Iron Man's mad. Peter has a great line where he says, you can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if there's no neighborhood. And he comes up with a plan to save Doctor Strange from the Aliens film, where they blast a hole into space and Ebony Maw gets sucked out. And then they decide on going to Titan to battle Thanos there instead of on Earth, where there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. Doctor Strange agrees.
And I think it made a lot of sense why Tony would want to do that, because, you know, his fiance is down there and he doesn't want to bring the fight back down to her. Yeah. He has something to lose back at Earth.
Yeah, and he said that he's been, you know, like haunted by Thanos ever since the attack on New York. And it kind of would make sense that, you know, he doesn't want a repeat of that to happen.
Right.
He'd rather maybe surprise Thanos. Makes sense. He knights Spidey, makes him an Avenger. I thought that was a great little moment. On Nowhere, before they get to Nowhere, actually, we see Gamora's childhood when Thanos first finds her and he kind of adopts her as he kills her mom and half the planet. Gamora kind of wakes up from this memory and makes Peter swear on his mother that he'll kill her if Thanos captures her because she knows something. What we don't know yet. Apparently you knew.
I knew.
But they go to Nowhere, they visit the Collector, and the whole thing turns out to be this illusion, this charade. It was a great use of the Reality Stone. I never quite knew how Thanos was going to use the stones, but I was completely satisfied with how he used each one.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. He did a good job of like leveling up. Like he knew how to use each one very well, I guess.
The Reality Stone he used a lot in his battles. Just the trippy stuff he was able to do. It was like the Doctor Strange film. It's like I didn't see that coming. It was really creative the way he used it.
Yeah, yeah. Especially this scene where he convinces Gamora that she killed him just to, you know, see how she would feel about that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a great moment. And I was kind of confused, like, why he was, like, egging Star-Lord on to kill her and why he didn't just kill Quill. And then it turns out that he was just toying with him again.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of brought out that whole kind of, like, he likes to have fun with his opponents.
When he was turning lasers into bubbles and, like, turning people into ribbon and blocks and stuff, at that point I was like, how the fuck are they going to beat him?
Yeah.
He's just so powerful.
Yeah. When he turned Drax into blocks and Mantis into ribbons, I was like, that is exactly what he did in the comics. I don't know if you remember that, but he turned Star Fox into blocks.
That's right.
And he turned Nebula into ribbons while he was torturing both of them for fun. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg.
I thought they died right there.
I thought they did too. So I was like, Drax can't be dead. In the trailers, we saw him on Titan later. So it turned out to be just like another sort of illusion type thing.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny how Thanos, before he left, it was like, I like you. When he's talking to his daughter's boyfriend, you know?
Yeah.
Whom he refers to as the boyfriend. And he's like, I prefer long-term booty call. That's pretty good. Great scene. All right. Then we go back to Avengers headquarters where we see that War Machine is taking a conference call and Cap returns. Secretary Ross orders him to arrest them, but he doesn't. So they're back on good terms again.
I mean,
they just missed each other.
I didn't really care about Don Cheadle's War Machine in Civil War, and I cared even less about him in this film.
What do you mean?
I don't know why. Like he's not as big of a character anymore as he was like in Iron Man 2. And
it's hard to know.
I'm still like wondering, like, I guess he's still around. I don't really care.
He's kind of always represented the military side of things, like the government side of things.
Yeah.
And so when you have him disobey a direct order from the Secretary of Defense, it's kind of interesting because that's kind of who his character has been up to this point. So you're not quite sure who the character is anymore.
Yeah.
Like, does he follow orders as much as he used to? What does he do?
He seemed to be like the most passionate in Civil War.
Yes.
On the terms of the Accords.
Mm-hmm.
And he got over that really quick.
Well, he did lose his legs. He's like, I remember seeing your name on those papers. And he's like, and I think I've paid the price for that. I thought that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like War Machine. I like his design, his armor design in this film. And all the little nifty, like, Swiss Army arsenal of weapons that he has, such as when he was flying along the perimeter of Wakanda and just chucking out those bombs.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool, I think. For as advanced as Iron Man's armor gets, War Machine will always have...
He's all about the artillery.
That firepower. That's so cool. Yeah. So back on Wakanda, Black Panther gives Bucky his new arm made of vibranium, which they don't really use. It doesn't have anything. It doesn't really do anything cool that his last arm couldn't do. It just has a cooler color.
Yeah. Yeah, that surprised me. I thought that was going to play a bigger role in some way because they made such a big deal about it.
Yeah, they kind of didn't need to make such a big deal about it because, I mean, he was badass. He was a good fighter in the film and everything, and I really like his team up with Rocket. But
and we understand like what Wakandan tech is like, you know, how cool it is and what it can do and all these different inventions that Shuri can make, and this was just an arm, apparently.
Yeah. Maybe that'll play later on. Although he's dead now, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. All right, back on the Sanctuary 2, which is Thanos' ship, we learn Thanos' motivation as he argues with Gamora.
That was sad. The way he was torturing Nebula.
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
He's an evil bastard.
And I know that he, you know, tortured her in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. You feel bad for her big time.
Yeah. We learned that Gamora does know the location of the Soul Stone and that Thanos knows that she lied when she said that she didn't because he was able to extract that information from Nebula's mechanical brain.
Yeah.
So she agrees to take him to the Soul Stone if he stops torturing Nebula.
Which seems like...
I think she knew that she would crack, and that's why she wanted Quill to kill her.
Yeah.
It was too bad that she did that, though.
Yeah.
Because it cost her life. On the way back to Nidavellir, back in space, we see that Rocket has a heart-to-heart with Thor, who kind of admits to Rocket that he's lost everything and that he's kind of using this pain and anger as motivation to defeat Thanos.
Yeah.
It was kind of a touching moment.
Yeah.
I like how Rocket told Groot to pee in a cup. He was like, who cares? You know, we've all seen a twig. What's a twig?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
Why would he tell him to pee in a cup?
Because Groot really had to pee.
Oh.
He put down his video game. He's like, I am Groot. He had to pee. It was funny. They go to the Nidavellir planet. It's really more of a Dyson sphere forge structure where they meet Eitri, and they learn that Thanos killed all the dwarves and that Eitri had constructed the Infinity Gauntlet, which can harness the power of the stones when Thanos makes a fist.
I forgot that Peter Dinklage was in this film. And I thought he was going to play a different character that was in the Infinity Gauntlet
Pip
storyline. Yeah, Pip.
Yeah.
But so to see him play this like massive giant dwarf was kind of cool. It was an interesting performance. You could tell he was deepening his voice. And he already has like a pretty deep voice to begin with.
You could tell that he was playing against nobody, you know?
Yeah.
You could tell that it wasn't the greatest performance, I would say, but I imagine that it would be hard to play, you know, a giant, speaking down to imaginary creatures.
Yeah.
We learned that Eitri has a new mold for the most powerful weapon ever, I guess, called Stormbreaker, which is a hammer similar to Mjolnir, but with an axe head and the ability to summon the Bifrost.
It was a weapon designed for Odin. Is that what he said?
I think, yeah, that's what he said. Yeah. It's so cool, though, that he can summon the Bifrost now, that he doesn't need Heimdall to do it. Because in the comics, Thor's always been able to kind of create portals with Mjolnir.
Yeah.
He's more true to his comics character now. Back on Titan, there's a crash landing with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Iron Man. The Avengers meet the Guardians for the first time in a pretty funny moment.
Yeah, it was great.
Where he's like, answer me this question, whom do you serve? And he's like, oh, what am I supposed to say, Jesus? He was like, oh, you're from Earth. And he's like, yeah, I'm from Earth. I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah.
They kind of argue a little bit about the plan. Star-Lord says, let me do the planning so the plan won't suck. And meanwhile, while they're arguing, Doctor Strange is peering into the multiple future timelines that could exist and looking for a way to beat Thanos.
And out of millions, they only win one.
Yeah, it was like a ridiculous number, like 14,500,043 or something like that.
And I'm really glad that they did that because I was ready. I was so prepared to come out of this film going, oh, why didn't he just use the time stone and reverse everything?
Yeah.
And it's like they did that. They sort of addressed that, what could have been a plot hole.
I just really hope that the explanation for why Doctor Strange did the things that he did throughout the rest of this kind of plays into his vision of the future timeline.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say is just in terms of like the plot hole with the time stone, I was like, oh, why couldn't, like, once he was on the ship, why couldn't he just reverse time until the ship was back on Earth? And then I remembered, like, he had to activate it first. You had to activate it, and then like he went into multiple futures or futures over and over again. And so he couldn't do that because he didn't activate the time stone while he was still on Earth.
Right.
And I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he didn't set that like checkpoint.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until you saw him like meditating on Titan. So I was like, damn it, there goes my one thing I was going to complain about or planning on complaining about.
Yeah. Okay, so on Vormir, where the Soul Stone is, we meet the Red Skull, which was probably the largest surprise of this film.
Yeah.
I was not expecting to see the Red Skull.
It was interesting. Once I heard Hugo Weaving's voice, which strangely enough turned out not to be Hugo Weaving's voice, I was like, why is Hugo Weaving in this film?
Yeah, it didn't register
Because I
to me.
forgot that he was the Red Skull.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh. It didn't click with me right away. I just knew that there was something very familiar about the voice. And it wasn't, I forgot what he said, but it was with a distinct German accent. So I was like, oh, maybe this is the Red Skull? And they showed his face, and I'm like, holy shit. It was so interesting the way they chose to portray him. And I think he was credited as Red Skull / the Stonekeeper in the credits. He looked like the personification of death.
That's what I thought it was going to be.
I wonder if that's what they're, because he has the skull face, and he has, the black hood and everything like that. I wonder if that was supposed to be an Easter egg to the death character.
I could see that. I could totally see that.
Yeah. It was a great role for the character, though. He was like, who are you? And he was like, I once sought the stones as well, and I even held one in my hand, but he wasn't worthy or whatever, And so now it's his fate to guide others to the treasure that he couldn't get himself. It's just kind of like this tragic, almost mythological type figure.
It's absolutely mythological, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have the sacrifice that Thanos makes, which on first viewing was sad, but in second viewing was truly heartbreaking. It was more disturbing the second time the way they showed Gamora falling to her death and then eventually her dead on the floor. It's just kind of hard to deal with.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to traumatize a few kids, for sure.
Yeah. The music that they played was just, it was
just good performances too.
Yeah. And it's interesting what happened right after that is that Thanos, he wakes up like at the base where they first landed on the planet. He's laying in the water. And at first I thought he was floating in space because of the reflection off the water, but he's just laying in the water and he wakes up and the Soul Stone's already in his hand. I wonder if there's something hidden there that they're not showing us until the next film, or if it's just, if the Soul Stone is just that mysterious.
I think there definitely is, because, at the end of the film when he snaps his fingers and all of a sudden he's like in the Soul Stone.
Yes, and he's talking to Gamora.
That was interesting. My wife definitely had questions about that. I had to explain to her that, he's in the Soul Stone.
Right.
He's in the limbo because Adam Warlock, he lived in the
Soul Gem,
Gem as well. So, I think they're definitely pulling that from the comics. And was he there? Did he forget? It's going to be interesting what they do with that.
Yeah. Back on Wakanda, Captain America and the gang, they land there, and there's a nice, funny little moment where War Machine tells Bruce Banner to bow, and he's like, no, we don't do that here. I thought that was pretty funny. They decide that they're going to rewire Vision so that they can extract the stone. Shuri apparently knows how to do that. They try to buy her time as the invasion of Wakanda begins. And of course, we have that great line where Black Panther says, get this man a shield.
Yeah. Although the shield wasn't as interesting as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, they didn't really kind of go into the specifics of what it could do. They look more like they were impressive gauntlets, and he had one on each hand. He could use them defensively, obviously, because it was broad enough. But I wanted to see more of its offensive capabilities. Like, was it just claws, or did it I don't know, did it do something else?
I wanted to see him throw it. I don't know, personally.
He wasn't going to throw that. Maybe it shot stuff out. I don't even know.
I know in the comics, recently, he had this shield that could split in two, and one of them had an energy dagger.
Yeah, at the tip.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be more like that.
So did I, honestly. But I didn't see any sort of energy protruding from the tip or anything.
No.
So back on Titan, we learn about Titan's past and how Thanos was once a member of the eternal race that lived on Titan, and how they started consuming too many of the planet's resources, and that he suggested dispassionate random genocide as a solution, but they called him a madman, and then the planet ended up consuming itself. And then the fight begins, which was such a great fight. Like, the way they kind of all executed their, teamwork maneuvers.
Yeah. Magic kick.
So fantastic.
Magic kick again.
Yeah, I like when Star-Lord put the bomb on the back of Thanos' back, and then, flipped him off, and then jumped backwards into the portal.
Yeah.
I could watch that scene over and over again. It was really fantastic. Just when we think that Thanos is going to get the upper hand, Nebula returns to join the fight. They almost win. It was such a well pulled off plan. They managed to grab his arms. The cloak of levitation is able to prevent Thanos from using the gauntlet because it's preventing him from making a fist. And Mantis falls from the sky through one of Doctor Strange's portals and is able to, kind of subdue him enough. And it's so close. And then all of a sudden we learned that Thanos killed Gamora, which sets Star-Lord off.
Mantis should have just kept her mouth shut.
What do you mean? Oh,
in terms of
about how he's in mourning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's to say whose fault it is? It may have been Nebula's too, because she's the one who was like, he left with Gamora, came back with the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
So
the gauntlet itself was pretty interesting. The fact that they tied it into being forged in Nidavellir.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool because in the comics it looks like he wears 2 yellow gloves and the gems just happen to fit like pasted onto one of the yellow gloves.
Yeah.
This, we saw this gauntlet all the way back in the Thor movies and at the end of the second Avengers movie.
Yeah.
So to know the history of that gauntlet, it was cool. I thought that was a nice touch.
I like how it was metal.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So then the fight gets even bigger and Thanos hurls like pieces of another one of Saturn's moons at the planet. And it kind of breaks the planet apart and like gravity lessens. And a lot of them end up having to, like, flying through the air, and Spider-Man has to save them and stuff like that. Back in Nidavellir, Thor has to restart the forge, which he does. He restarts it. He restarts the ring spinning, but he has to keep the iris of the forge open where the sun is stored in order to actually melt the Uru metal that makes the hammer. And he almost dies doing so.
I would have liked to have seen like Rocket come up with some device that could have done it instead of Thor.
Well, he probably could have.
Like, it was no one questioned the fact that he was going to survive that. Everyone, it was obvious he was going to survive it. But yeah, it would have been nice to have. It would have been like a big role that Rocket could have played.
There was a nice little callback to the first Thor film where Thor was like dead, lying on the ground, and there was that little like sparkle of electricity, and Mjolnir flew back to him and restored him with the lightning. And it looks like that's exactly what happened here. Yeah. He was lying there dead, and his hands kind of had that sparkle, and then the hammer flew to him and restored him.
Yeah.
So on Wakanda, they start fighting the Outriders. It's a pretty cool scene when they open up the barrier and the army starts charging toward the Outriders, and Black Panther and Captain America are running faster than everybody.
Yeah.
They're like the first ones.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
I thought it was interesting how like they started like to go around the shield, and they were like, well, there's they're going to end up behind us. So what do? We have to open the shield. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, well, I thought they were gonna open the whole thing. I'm like, don't do that. But it was cool how they like kind of bottlenecked them with just that segment of the shield.
I would have gotten like much closer to that bottleneck and just like 300 them.
Yeah, like in the movie 300.
Yeah, with like the border tribe shields.
Yeah, that would have been cool too. And they do fight well against the Outriders for a while, but the Outriders all of a sudden start getting the upper hand, especially when they bring in those big wheel digger things that go underneath the shield. But at that point, Scarlet Witch joins the fray and is able to save them, as well as Thor, who starts destroying the ships. When Thor came back on that fight, it looked like everybody was about to lose. The Hulkbuster was knocked over and being torn apart, and Black Panther was getting knocked around, and Steve was getting knocked around, and then all of a sudden the Bifrost comes, and we see Rocket. It's a ridiculous scene of Rocket and Groot and Thor, but it's so heroic, and like one of the ladies sitting in front of me in the theater, she like shot her arms up like, yes! It was really great.
I was really glad that Banner was able to defeat one of the Black Order just like with his own wits.
Yes. Yeah,
how cool.
He strapped, I think it was the arm rocket to Ebony Ma, and like sent him up into the shield, which kind of cut him to pieces.
Yeah.
To the barrier shield.
Yeah.
Back on Titan, we have Doctor Strange versus Thanos, that great fight, and then Iron Man versus Thanos. Those are both great fights.
Yeah.
But eventually Iron Man gets stabbed and Doctor Strange gives up the time stone. And Iron Man's like, why did you do that? And he's like, this is the only way. We're in the end game now. Back in Wakanda, Proxima Midnight dies by the hands of Scarlet Witch and Black Widow and Okoye teaming up, which I thought was a pretty cool team up.
Yeah.
Those three.
The only thing that would have made it better is if Gamora would have teamed up with them.
Too soon, man. Too soon. We have the Corvus and Vision fighting each other again, and Cull versus Hulkbuster, which you mentioned before. And they defeat all the Black Order and everything, so it seems mostly good until all of a sudden Vision realizes that Thanos is coming, and he asks Scarlet Witch to destroy the stone, which she has a hard time doing.
That was so prolonged. Holy crap, that took forever. I was like,
It really
how are
was.
you guys still able to talk? He's fucking walking right towards you.
Yeah.
Hurry up and do what you're going to do. Cut the chit chat.
Yeah.
Come on.
It was touching, though. He was like, Vision told her, he was like, I know it's not fair that it has to be you, but it has to be you. Something along those lines. I thought that was a good line. But yeah, I thought when she destroyed the stone, I was like, oh, cool. He doesn't get all the stones.
Oh, I saw that coming.
I forgot about this time stone all of a sudden. Apparently, a lot of people figured that out before I did. For me, all that suspenseful built up meant something. But I guess someone like you, who knew that even if she did destroy the Mind Stone, it wasn't going to matter anyway.
Right.
You were probably just like, get it over with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. He straight up reverses time and murders Vision, but he crushes his whole frontal lobe when he rips out the gem.
Yeah, it's not a delicate taking of the gem.
Yeah. This whole 20-minute period has a lot of highs and lows where it's like, unfortunately, Thanos has the time gem. Fortunately, they're able to defeat Kull and Corvus. Unfortunately, Thanos is arriving. Fortunately, they can destroy the Mind Stone. Unfortunately, he can reverse time.
That's film in general. It's always a give and take. And I think it's a sign of
Good writing.
Good writing. Yeah, they mapped out a good plan.
Yeah. So at that point, Thanos gets attacked by Thor and Stormbreaker, and Thor nearly succeeds, but he just didn't land the killing shot by going for the head or by going for the arm, even.
Yeah.
Chopping the arm off, because Thanos is able to get off that snap. And that was such an epic moment. Like I said, I was like, oh shit, he's gonna do the snap, and then he does it, and I thought the movie was gonna end at that point.
Yeah, me too.
But no, it still goes on for like another 5 minutes because we see.
I think longer than that.
Yeah.
We see him go into the Soul Stone.
The Soul Stone.
And she asks, what did it cost? And he says everything. And it kind of did cost him everything. It cost him his daughter. It cost him like his followers.
Yeah.
Because they're all dead.
Yeah. He still has his ship though, and apparently he has like nice, relaxing vacation property on some other lush green planet.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Where
apparently
he watches the just like how he said he would. He watches the sunrise on a grateful universe allegedly. Were you surprised by any of the people who disappeared?
Sort of. Yes and no. Black Panther was definitely a surprise. I don't think I was surprised. I was surprised that the entire Guardians of the Galaxy cast.
Me too. I thought like Star-Lord was going to stick around or something.
Yeah.
Well, Rocket survived, but he was the only one. I was surprised when Scarlet Witch disappeared. I didn't see that coming because I thought she was going to have to live with the sadness of Vision's death. But
yeah, that would have made sense.
Yeah. I thought Okoye was going to go when Black Panther was helping her up.
Yeah.
But it was Black Panther. Yeah. That was probably the most surprising one.
And I know they shot multiple endings for this. So I would be surprised, or I wouldn't be surprised if even the actors didn't know like who was going to stay and who was going to go.
Maybe. Yeah. I actually thought Cap was going to go too. But I'm glad that like once they showed who was left, I was like, oh, it's the original Avengers.
Yeah.
I see what they're doing here.
Yeah.
All right. Is that the end of it?
Except for the after credits scene.
Yeah. The after credits scene. It's great that they showed this because we see all the characters that we know and love disappear and everything like that, but you don't get a whole lot of real world consequence. You don't see what it looks like for the real world when half the population is destroyed. So the fact that they brought it back to Nick Fury and Maria Hill back in New York.
And you see like average people, you see planes crash into buildings, which in New York, holy crap.
It was a helicopter, but yeah, same thing. Yeah, and the cars crashing.
So they could do it, but Man of Steel can't.
This is a much bigger universal event than just Zod attacking the city. And you know what Iron Man decided to do? He decided to take the fight off Earth. So, it's not his fault. He tried.
Yeah.
But anyway, we get the Easter egg with Captain Marvel. Honestly, I didn't know what the ending scene was going to be. And usually it's a huge kind of esoteric Easter egg that, nobody knows what the end credit scene meant and has to have it explained to them or something like that. So he pulled out the device from the back of the car and Melissa was like, what's that? And I'm like, it looks like the ultimate nullifier.
Oh God. Really?
I thought it did, honestly. I thought he was pulling out the ultimate nullifier for some reason.
What was he going to do with that?
I have no idea.
End everything?
Destroy the rest of the universe? I don't know. But it turns out that it's just a pager. It's a pager that summons Captain Marvel.
Which makes sense, since the Captain Marvel movie is going to be taking place in the 90s, that he would have a pager and not a cell phone to summon her.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty funny. A lot of people, though, in the theater were still like, huh? I'm like, relax, people. I'll explain everything to you. It's Captain Marvel. So yeah, that does it for the story breakdown and for the review in general. Overall, I think you could tell that we really had a lot of fun with this movie.
Yeah. I compare it to The Dark Knight just because I feel like it was as unprecedented. You know, the villain wins in the end. I remember when I walked out of The Dark Knight, I was like, did I just see a masterpiece? I didn't necessarily feel that way with this film.
No.
Because with The Dark Knight, like it was so completely different from what I thought it was going to be. It was so like unpredictable. This film I thought was a little bit more predictable, but it was still like really good. It earned everything that happened because of the 10 years of films that we've had.
Yeah.
And it didn't need to be unpredictable for it to be good because it still was really good.
Yeah. Whereas The Dark Knight may have had the great cinematography and a grounded story, I think this one had a great script.
It was epic. It was just so epic.
It's epic on a way
it's like something I've never seen before.
Yeah. So I'm actually giving it a perfect score. I'm giving it 5 stars. I like this movie more than the first Avengers movie. I liked it more than Captain America Civil War. I think it was as perfect a version of this film as you're likely ever to get.
Yeah. I agree. It's better than what I thought it was going to be. It resonated more than I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would consider a perfect film. It's kind of hard to
I shouldn't say perfect.
It's kind of hard to give it a perfect score when, like, you know, my wife didn't really think it was that great.
Yeah.
But again, she doesn't have all the backstory. But if you do have the backstory, it is phenomenal.
It's 5 stars with an asterisk. 5 stars, the footnote being you have to be invested in these characters. You have to have done your homework. You have to know your backstory.
Yeah. So otherwise, it's not going to be a 5-star film.
Do you rate it 5 stars or?
I don't think I would, just because of that. You know, that's the reason we didn't give Civil War a perfect score is because of all the homework you had to do. And I'm not wondering like how much of an excuse is that going to be? Is that going to continue to be a detriment to these Marvel films? And in a way, kind of yes, but also in another way, I could understand that
Black Panther wasn't like that.
No, it wasn't.
It was a standalone,
right? But and that's why my wife really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always approach it with the idea being, especially from our podcast's point of view, that you haven't seen any of these films because we have.
Right.
You know, so I don't think it was a perfect film. So I'll give it 4.5 stars, but I could totally understand the justification of giving it 5 stars.
Yes. Thank you. That'll be our rating for this. It'll be 5 stars.
Yeah. Again, to me, this is like the closest, not that we gave Watchmen 5 stars, but this is like the closest they'll ever get to like Watchmen.
You mean Watchmen is almost close to Infinity War?
No. One of them came first.
Yeah. All right. Okay, that does it for this episode, guys. Go ahead and let us know on social media what you guys thought of the movie, either on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Just search for Dynamic Duel Podcast. Don't forget that at the end of this episode, we're giving a teaser of the blooper bonus episode that we're putting out on Thursday. Please subscribe to the podcast or review it or tell your friends. One of those 3 things. Just pick one. Don't forget that if you go on to Stitcher.com/premium and use promo code DUEL, you get a free month of Stitcher Premium where you can listen to Wolverine: The Long Night, which is a podcast produced by Marvel and Stitcher about Wolverine. It's pretty damn good.
Oh, and if you go to our website, dynamicduel.com, you'll find links to all of our social media sites, you know, our merch store, in addition to our Patreon. And again, as we mentioned earlier on in this episode, if you guys help us get to these 25 patrons, we'll be able to send out the No Prize printed copies.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. That would be a lot of fun to do for us and for you guys, provided that you win the No Prize. In our next episode, we will be reviewing another film that just came out, a DC film. It's a DC animated film called Ninja Batman. It looks pretty interesting.
I don't think anyone's heard of it. They picked a really bad time to release this film because I checked on Rotten Tomatoes. It has like 3 reviews.
Really?
Yeah, no one is talking
great. We'll be the 4th.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll review that one next week, so look forward to that. If you haven't seen Ninja Batman yet, go ahead and check it out. It's streaming on a lot of different platforms right now, I think, including iTunes and Amazon, I would believe. So go ahead and check that out, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away.
True believers.
Our question of the week is... Fuck!
This is why you're not allowed to say anything, because you can't.
No, shut up. And our question of the week... Did I fuck that up again?
Yes!
No, shut up. And our question of the week is, who had the best... Fuck you.
Gee, Jonathan.
No. And our... Damn it! I can't stop laughing. All right, here we go.
You can't say like less than 10 words properly. Jesus.
No. Okay. And our question of the week is, who had the best death in a Marvel or DC film? Going, fuck! Damn it, dude. What? Just stop. Just stop.
Just speak normally and I won't have to laugh.
I'm trying. Okay.